It was almost 6 o'clock in the evening when Amara went to her post. The heat of the afternoon, although gradually dissipating, still lingered in the thick air, a legacy of a sweltering summer day. The evening breeze, light but beneficial, caressed his face, bringing a semblance of relief after the intensity of the sun. Amara, a 45-year-old black woman, walked with purpose on the cobblestone sidewalk. Her heels struck the ground with relentless precision, each step emitting a rhythmic sound, like an echo of the inner battles she fought each day. His police captain's uniform fitted impeccably to his figure, the gold braid on his shoulders glinting in the fading light of day. These stripes were not simply a symbol of his rank. They represented the years of hard work, sacrifice and struggles against invisible but oppressive walls. They were testimony to the tenacity of a woman who, at each stage of her career, had to prove her legitimacy in a police world where her skin color was often seen as an obstacle. In this district, more than anywhere else, his authority was not a simple question of ranks. It was a matter of respect, won through many silent battles. Amara was off duty that evening, but she needed to grab some important files before heading home. The day had been long and tiring, but she knew that each document to report to her superior could be the key to important decisions to come. She walked through a small alley, her thoughts focused on the evening ahead, when a scene below caught her attention and made her abruptly stop. In front of her, in the shadows of the buildings, a uniformed police officer, Sergeant Leclerc, was questioning a black woman in her 30s. The image struck her immediately. The woman seemed lost, disoriented, overwhelmed by the situation. Her eyes shone with palpable fear, as if she were trapped in a world where her words weren't enough to defend her. And what shocked Amara the most was the brutality with which Leclerc called out to her. Leclerc was not unknown. Amara had already crossed his path several times within the department. His sergeant's temperament was as rough as his gaze, impetuous, authoritarian, and often tinged with contempt. But today, what she observed went beyond the simple excesses of a poorly trained police officer. He was abusing his power, crushing it for no apparent reason. The scene seemed disproportionate, a flagrant excess of force for a situation which, from the outside, did not seem to justify such violence. Amara walked forward slowly. Every fiber of her being screamed at her not to intervene hastily, but her police instincts, honed by years of service, knew that there was something deeply unfair in what she saw. She was not a mere spectator. In this alley, she was the one who decided what was fair, what was abuse, and what had to stop immediately. She stopped a few steps from Leclerc, her gaze intensifying as she observed the scene with controlled coldness. The woman, whose shoulders were trembling under the sergeant's pressure, tried to defend herself with a trembling but persevering voice. "I'm late for work, I told you. I didn't do anything wrong, please let me go." But his words fell into a void, as if Leclerc knowingly ignored them. He held her arm firmly, forcing her to stand up straight under his sharp, contemptuous gaze. His eyes searched the woman, but did not see her. Amara felt her heart tighten. This was not the first time she had seen someone, a black woman in particular, treated this way. This feeling of being reduced to the color of your skin, of being judged before even a word is exchanged, Amara knew it well. She was not going to tolerate another police officer abusing their position to perpetuate this injustice. The sergeant's voice rose again, this time even harsher. "You're going to tell me where you're going now, or I'm going to take you away for public disturbance. You look like a delinquent, you better stay in your place." Every word from Leclerc struck Amara like an iron bell. The sergeant's gaze darkened, and his tone became threatening, as if he believed his words would be enough to silence the victim. Leclerc didn't understand. He did not understand the humiliation he inflicted, nor the poison of racism he let seep into his words and behavior. Amara knew exactly what it was like to be belittled, to be insulted by the mere appearance of darker skin. And she would no longer allow that. Without another word, she moved forward, slowly at first, then with a firm step. Her heels hit the ground with a sharp thud, a sound that cut the air and attracted attention. Leclerc, taken by surprise, turned his head. Her eyes met his, and he knew instantly that something had changed. Amara placed a firm hand on his shoulder, a gesture that left no room for negotiation. "Leclerc, let go of her," she said in a calm but firm voice. Leclerc turned towards her, his features hardening as he realized who he had in front of him. He was surprised, obviously. In his sergeant's mind, he had never considered that a colleague could interrupt him like this, especially a black woman. But he didn't let himself be daunted. He shrugged his shoulders with incredible arrogance. "What do you want, Captain? She leaves me no choice. This woman is a potential criminal, I feel it." His voice trembled with misplaced confidence. Amara, her fists clenched but her face icy calm, replied in a low but threatening voice. "No, you were wrong, Leclerc. What you are doing here is an abuse of power. Let her go, and I will take care of you afterwards." Leclerc, irritated by the situation and destabilized by Amara's implacable assurance, sought to reverse the balance of power. He sneered, a menacing grin on his face, and turned his head towards the black woman that Amara had just freed from her grip. In a contemptuous tone, he spat. "What, you thought you were going to get away with it just because another black girl saved you?" Leclerc's words were heavy with contempt, a desperate attempt to reassert himself after seeing his authority challenged by a colleague he clearly underestimated. But he had no idea of the magnitude of his mistake, nor of who he really had in front of him. He didn't know that this woman, this police captain, was not just a uniform in a department. She embodied much more than that. Amara wasn't just a figure of order. She was one of the pillars of a fierce fight against racial discrimination. Every day, she carried the legacy of decades of silent struggle, of injustices she had overcome, and she was determined to uphold the dignity of every individual. That evening, she was not there to play the victim card, but to exercise her authority. She had established herself in this environment, with discipline and an unwavering thirst for justice. She didn't need permission to get where she was, but she had to push and break the barriers imposed by a deeply entrenched system. And tonight, she was ready to prove it to this man who still thought her uniformity of power could crush everything she stood for. With icy calm, Amara took a firm step towards Leclerc. His eyes shone with unwavering determination. Without another word, she roughly grabbed the police officer's wrist, the one that was still holding the woman's arm in a completely unjustified manner. Leclerc tried to free himself, but Amara had no intention of letting him escape so easily. She put pressure on his wrist, forcing Leclerc to let go. "I'll tell you one thing, Leclerc," she said in a cold but powerful voice. "I'm the police captain of this town. You have no idea who I am, but now you will understand what a big mistake you made." Amara pulled out her phone with calculated speed, recording every detail of the incident so it could not be denied. Leclerc tried to intimidate him with a look, but he knew suddenly that he was caught in a trap from which he could not escape. He had never considered that a member of his own ranks, a colleague, might have the courage to stand up to him. He was seriously mistaken. She immediately called her colleague, Commander Renault, to provide an official report and ensure that the incident would be properly documented. Leclerc tried to protest, but Amara looked at him with an implacable calm that left no room for hesitation. He knew he was now up against the wall. His excuses, his arrogance, all of that no longer mattered. "You didn't just break the rules, Leclerc," Amara continued, her voice low but firm. "You let your prejudices take over, blinded by institutionalized racism that you allowed yourself to implement. You believe that you can treat a person this way simply because they are black. And you will pay for that." At these words, Leclerc turned pale. He finally understood the gravity of his mistake, but it was too late. He had not only committed a crime against this woman, he had just committed an act that would profoundly affect his career, and beyond that, the justice system that he represented. Amara did not wait another second to file a complaint against Leclerc. She knew that this act, while necessary, would only be a first step in a series of changes she hoped for, but she was prepared to fight for this principle. She called surveillance, reported the incident to command, and ensured that Leclerc would be suspended pending the results of the investigation. The woman he had mistreated, visibly relieved, thanked Amara. With a dignified gesture, Amara responded with a respectful nod. She knew this was not just a simple act of rescue, but a symbolic one. Every gesture, every word, counted in the long struggle for equality and dignity. A few days later, an official investigation was opened, and Leclerc was suspended. Disciplinary measures were taken, but Amara knew the road was still strewn with pitfalls. What she had just accomplished was only just beginning. This incident would not be just a line in a file, but a turning point in the way in which the police would henceforth treat citizens, especially black people, in this city. Leclerc, under investigation, was now a living symbol of the systematic abuse of power that the police needed to eradicate. And for Amara, it was just another step in the battle she was fighting. But this step, this one, resonated with force and determination. She returned to her post, but this time something had changed. Her colleagues, those who already respected her, admired her even more. She knew this was not the time to rest, but to continue fighting. The fight against injustice, she often said, had no end, but she would lead it with courage, to the end.